I think that's one of the driving forces. I never take a job on that I am not absolutely terrified of and think to myself, how the hell am I going to do that? Because I'll tell you now, if you go in and go, oh, I can do that, I'll have that done in 5 minutes for you, it's going to be hell on earth. It will be hell on earth. And every single time I've done a job where I thought, oh, this is easy money, it's just completely backfired. So now I just do the jobs that scare the living daylights out of me. And I think, how the hell am I going to do that?
By the brilliant Col Price for today's episode, who offers us an in-depth look into his mind and approach as a concept artist working on the movie industry's most spectacular films. So, let's jump in and hear more from Col on being an artist in this industry and why, despite the immense influence concept artists have on our favourite IPs, they still remain invisible and highly underrated, and how his experience on Alien Romulus can put a change to all of this, and much more. Let's go. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Learn Squared podcast. I'm delighted to welcome a very special guest today, the mighty Col Price. Welcome, Col.
Cheers, mate. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, for sure, man. I don't know where to begin. Normally it's like, yeah, let's start with the origin story stuff. But I guess before we even get to that, how has your year been? I mean, like we're approaching the end of the year. I think there's a few weeks left before the next year comes along. How would you rate your year?
You know what? This year's been really, really weird because it's been exceptionally quiet because of strikes and all the problems that have been going on in the industry. And yet at the same time, I've had 3 films come out literally within the space of a couple of months of each other, which was Dune 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and then, of course, Alien Romulus. So for me, it's like, it doesn't really, I should retire because it doesn't really get any better than that. You know, it's been incredible. And the gifts that still keep giving as well, which is pretty cool. So it's been like I said, it's been an interesting year. I'm looking forward to next year, and hopefully work's about to ramp up again. So yeah, cool.
Amazing. I mean, that's a pretty decent playlist to have, coming out one after the other, especially from an artist perspective. I know everyone has their opinions about films. Those 3 films you mentioned, I've only watched 2 of them. I enjoyed them. But from a visual perspective, from what I've seen, it's that's just like a great little list to have on the business card. But yeah, so let everybody know what you do and what you specialize in.
God. Well, I'm a concept artist. What do I specialize in? Yeah, I specialize mostly in film and TV, although obviously I spent 20 odd years in the games industry.
Okay.
But yeah, and I think really realistically probably be better for sci-fi stuff, environments. I'll leave the character stuff to people that can do that type of thing. But yeah, so that's kind of what I do. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Muck around basically.
I mean, I obviously, is that how you, not trying to get too forensic about it, but do you feel like that about, I guess, your job and your skill set? Because a lot of people I speak to, myself included, I do find it difficult to explain specifically like, oh, this is what I do. And I always tend to verge on, I just draw pictures for a living kind of thing and kind of dilute it when in fact obviously put a lot of energy into it. Is that how you feel about things as well?
I do. When people say, and I say I'm a concept artist, and they look at you blankly, and I go, I draw spaceships and monsters for a living. And leave it at that, and they go, "Oh, that's cool," But yeah, that's the easiest way to explain it, because trying to explain to people what you actually do, even people in the industry, what you actually do, you could just go on forever, and they just glaze over and
that's true.
Switch off.
Yeah, it is literally like the end credits, but that's one person's, just like all the different things they do, just to explain what they do. So, but obviously, when you're drawing monsters and spaceships and stuff, in sci-fi, obviously that's normally like when you're a kid, that's the dream. That's like, what do you want to do as a living? I just want to invent these things.
Yeah.
Was that the case for you?
Definitely. 100%. I mean, right from a really early age, I was I found out that I could actually draw stuff, and it didn't look terrible.
Hmm.
I was terrible at everything else, but I could draw stuff and paint stuff. And my grandfather was an artist, so
Wow.
I would take my paintings down to him, and he was an actor as well. And I would take stuff down to him, and he would like tell me different things and different techniques and stuff like that. And then I would come back, and so he was a really big influence. But right from the word go, it was like, yeah, I think it's like when I started when I was growing up, the stuff that was on the TV was like proper ancient stuff. So it's like Ray Harryhausen films.
Hmm.
As soon as I saw them, I was hooked. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. I want to make those monsters and do
Wow.
that kind of thing. Um, and I still kept that all the way through, even through school. Even when the teachers used to say to me, what do you want to do? And I'd say, I want to work in films, making
Oh wow.
monsters. And they'd be like, no, you're probably going to end up in a factory,
Yeah.
across the road sort of thing. And I was determined. I was like, because nothing, back then, nothing existed.
Hmm.
I mean, Star Wars came out when I was about 10,
Okay.
and it's hard to tell people. I tell my son about this. He's in his 20s, and I say, when Star Wars came out, literally, there's always that line, isn't there? When they say about making films, it's never been seen before.
Hmm.
Well, literally, that had never been seen before when Star Wars came out.
Hmm.
Blue screen and what Industrial Light and Magic did, that had literally never ever been seen before on screen. And it was, if you're a 10-year-old sitting there and then all of a sudden you see this giant starship fly over and you're just like, oh my god, this is just mind melding. And all those films from that era sort of molded me. I got to see things like, obviously the three best Star Wars films on the big screen. But
Yeah.
stuff like Close Encounters, seeing that for the first time on the big screen, and then another huge, massive influence was seeing Blade Runner when I was about, I think it must have been about 15 when Blade Runner came out.
Ooh,
Blade
a
Runner
good
and
age.
Alien pretty
Yeah.
much came out at the same time. To seeing Blade Runner on the big screen, that was it. That was the one. That was like, I've never seen anything like it.
Really.
And it was just like, it's like a light bulb gone off, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then I just became completely obsessed with visual effects. And I would literally buy any magazine I could, that was out at the time, and so forth, and watch as much as I could, and read all these articles on stuff. Again, going back in the 80s, there was nothing there. There was certainly um, no computers
Hmm.
to do stuff on.
Mm.
So all the artwork that I was doing then, I taught myself how to paint with airbrushes and
Wow.
acrylics and stuff like that, and it'd be all over the floor, and the carpet would be
Yeah.
multicolors, and yeah, it was dreadful. But yeah. So definitely.
Wow. What was it? So you mentioned about Star Wars there. Obviously, like history has shown, and when you look back at it, its impact it's had on cinema, even that industry. Like I have concluded that if that venture never happened with George Lucas and ILM and all of that energy going into it, this industry that we have now probably would not exist. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
probably would. It is probably like the whatever the opposite is to an extinction level event, like the reverse of that kind of
yeah,
triggered
yeah.
this. You mentioned that obviously like it was never been done before. At the age of 10, like could you tell like this was something special, this was something different, or was it
Oh,
just
without
like what
doubt.
was it like when you first watched it? Like, and
The,
also, was it when you first watched it, or was it the hype leading up to it?
Now that's a really interesting question, because the hype leading up to it was almost non-existent,
Okay.
right? Because if you wanted to see a trailer, you would have to see a film at the cinema, because trailers weren't shown on TV.
Yes. Yes.
And the only
Yes.
single shot that was shown, which is still today my favorite shot, until George Lucas changed it in the revised versions, is the shot where the Millennium Falcon blasts off from Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that, and seeing stormtroopers for the first time and thinking, what the hell is that? That just looks incredible. What I remember as a 10-year-old, and this is something that has stayed with me ever since, and I remember sitting there and distinctly thinking, I am watching the greatest film ever made, at 10, as a 10-year-old. Because I was just sitting there and it was just like, this is just overload, You got popcorn, Coke, and that stuff's going on, and it's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
incredible. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if it hadn't been for the likes of John Dykstra, and we wouldn't have motion control cameras that are still getting used today. All those techniques that those guys did for Star Wars were pretty much done from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
That tech was so brutally just put together for them to create that film. It was like guerrilla filmmaking on
Yeah.
steroids, basically. So yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right that they definitely changed the course of filmmaking. And as soon as Star Wars came out, Industrial Light and Magic were overrun
Mm-hmm.
with projects to do. And if you look at there's a really good book out actually, which my mum and dad bought me when I was about I think it was about 13, 14, or something like that. And it's like the first few years of Industrial Light and Magic.
Okay.
And it's got all their films. And the stuff that they were doing, obviously they were doing, they did Raiders of the Lost Ark and, even stuff like Young Sherlock Holmes, which
Mm-hmm.
was, again, absolutely groundbreaking because it was the first time that I think they'd use CG in a live action film, I think.
Yeah, it's that stained glass window soldier type person,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, those guys are responsible for me,
Yeah.
and so are those directors, those people like Ridley Scott and, George Lucas and other effects people like Douglas Trumbull. They're all responsible for me doing what I do. As well as at that time, there was a huge gamut of sci-fi artists that, again, that was another thing that was being fed into me. And I had books on Chris Foss and Chris
Mm-hmm.
Moore and Jim Burns and Fred Gambino, who I'm mates with today. Those guys that were doing those sci-fi paintings. Again, that was just like complete fuel. It was constant
Yes.
overload all the time. And that's before we'd even got to computers. I never really
Yeah.
had a computer till, I must have been in my 20s, so crazy, crazy stuff. Yeah.
And at that point in time, like, what was your? Did that also trigger your love for movies and movie magic? Like, because obviously there's a different thing with like a lot of people. I said maybe everyone loves a good film, loves a good tale, loves just a bit of entertainment. Then you got the nerd out a bit where like I love the cinematography, I love the design kind of thing. Then there's like the whole like behind the scenes, how it's made and how do I contribute, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, what was your relationship with movies before you watched Star Wars? Was you aware of like how awesome things could be, or did that almost again trigger all of that and open your eyes to all of that world right
Yeah.
now
I
as
mean,
well?
I loved movies from the word go.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, whenever they were on telly, I would sit and watch, and I would sit and watch them as well. I'd go and see my granddad, and I'd be sitting and watching films, and he would be there in a cloud of pipe smoke, in this old chair, watching these really old cowboy films that were dreadful. But we'd sit and watch them, and they were fantastic, and I loved them, And my mum was like, she loved the musicals. And the thing I think it was just escapism. It was fantasy. Movies were purely fantasy. There were stories, and I think that was the thing. And I think once I got to be able to go to the cinema at the age of going, when I could go to the cinema, it was pure escapism because you go in that room, the lights go down, and then that's it. You are taken to that other world or other time or whatever. And definitely then it was just like, this is great. This is what I want to do. And this is before
Yeah.
I'd even thought about behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
This is going back when I was like really, really, really young and 6, 7 or whatever, and just watching all this stuff. Because again, you know, I mean, it's crazy to think how much we've all, you know, we have Netflix, Amazon, HBO, whatever. You know, back then we had the BBC, BBC Two, and then ITV, and that was it.
Okay.
That was it. There was 3 channels,
Yeah.
and they finished about 10 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
and they would come on round about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, and there'd be kids programs on from about 4 o'clock onwards, and they'd finished at 5:30, and that was it. You know, and you think about what we have today, and it's ancient. It sounds ancient, and it is ancient. You just look back 20 years, just how much everything has snowballed. It's just incredible what we have today. You know, it's fantastic. But definitely, yeah, I fell in love with cinema, and I still am in love with cinema. It's a fantastic medium.
Totally can relate. So I remember when growing up, it was Channel 4. I remember when Channel 5 came out and the guys came around to program your, I think, TV or VHS so you can get it in. I got so excited because I put that little sticker on there thinking, wow, this is going to be an amazing new thing. Channel 5 has been pretty shit ever since, but nevertheless, it was nice to have something new. And obviously, like, early 2000s is the emergence of cable and Sky and all that. Sky's been around since 90s, but when it became more like everybody kind of started having it. But I can totally relate, like, the whole thing of cinema. So my Star Wars experience that you had was with Jurassic Park. And it was a case of like, that was my first time in the cinemas. Our cinemas was like it's a bus station now. Well, I think it's a $1 below pound shop actually, but it's like a 3-screen cinema. And the queues were like super long and like the old school, like we see on TV, and just the wait and getting in there. And then like the whole experience of sitting in this massive thing, the lights go down, loud sound. That is literally like the best movie going experience I'll ever have. Yeah, and great. I'm so grateful for it. But I also like with TV as well. A lot of my film experiences, especially with Star Wars, was through VHSs or taping them off the TV. And same thing, kids programs finished about 5, I think, and then say 6 o'clock onwards, it was more like whatever soaps or whatever came on and news and all that kind of stuff. And then when you got older, 9 o'clock Watershed, you got some decent films. But I remember like getting hooked on the TV guides. And the film would always be like blocked out. This is a film, and then you kind of see what it is. I didn't even care if the film was good or bad. It was like a privilege just to see a film. And I agree with you as well. Like it was the whole thing of like a movie experience. And looking back now, there's a lot of films that I'll rewatch again thinking, how did I enjoy this? But looking back, obviously, of course, it was more the fact that I was locked into this film that I know that if you took your eyes off it, you're not going to be able to rewind it and go back and watch it. Like you have to be there. People at school will be like, did you watch that? And I'm like, no, I didn't get to miss it. And then there's a bit of FOMO with that as well. But there's also that thing of like just being present and being able to witness it almost. What was your first experience of not enjoying going to the cinemas? Or has it not been the case?
Oh, there's only been one. There's only been one. And that was Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I remember sitting there watching it and thinking, oh my God, this is dreadful. I need to sit down. I need to sit down and rewatch it because probably it isn't as terrible as I remembered it. But I remember thinking it's probably the only film I've ever seriously thought of walking out the cinema for. I stayed and watched it till the end because it's one of them, isn't it? I mean, are there any bad films? Because someone's got to love them, no matter how bad they are. And some bad films are actually really good. Yes. You know, I don't think there's ever really a bad film that just didn't gel with me, and I just didn't enjoy it, and I was just like, this is dreadful. Yeah. But I could probably rewatch it now, you know, and have a better outcome. But I think at the time when it came out, I was like, oh, this is appalling. This is just dreadful.
I have fond memories of that, but I haven't seen it for a very long time. But I think I have fond memories because I bought it on DVD. And because I paid money for it, I feel like I'm going to pretend that I enjoy it. Yeah. But that was also at a time where you could put any film in front of me. Like I still think the Street Fighter film with Jean-Claude Van Damme is an all-time classic. Just because it was like, just a film. And it was awesome. And it's only, I'll probably say, until, I guess, the golden age of TV, you know, Breaking Bad and onwards, and maybe even a little bit before that, where the magic of film started to fall apart, at least in terms of like, not every blockbuster is just going to be amazing. Like
Yeah,
everything's going to get critiqued and all that kind of stuff, which is totally fine.
yeah.
There's still so many films to love and enjoy. Um, but I'm just curious to hear, because I hear from different groups of people that I know, some that are like, I guess, film nerds like us. So to put you in the nerd category, but I'm gonna plunk you in there. Some that are
Well,
just literally, a film is purely to provide a service, nothing more than that. So like a bit of, just to pass some time, which is totally fair enough as well. But it's like, it's almost like a chore for them to go to the cinema, and if it doesn't entertain them, it's like, oh, forget it, I don't care, or whatever. And that kind of breaks my heart still. Like, I feel like even
I
to this
love
day, getting to the cinemas, making sure I get my seat, even though it's all pre-booked nowadays, and even though I don't like the trailers, getting to watch the trailers and all sorts. And there's something about movie magic, and it's obviously clear like it was something for you from a young age as well. Um, do you find people like that as well, or do you find the people that you're around are almost, like, love cinema like you do?
yeah, I mean, I find people in the industry are like us. They love it. They love the medium. And then there's people that can just, you know, they don't really bother,
Mm-hmm.
which I always think is quite sad, really. I mean, I love, like I said, going to a cinema. There's something about seeing a film in the cinema is a completely different experience to when you watch it on TV. Completely different
Yes, yes,
experience.
yes, yes, yes.
It's like watching a completely different film.
Yeah.
Um, and I just love it. I go quite a lot, and because I work from home, it means that Monday or whatever or Tuesday I can drive 20 minutes and be at the cinema.
Uh-huh.
The cinemas are empty these
Yes.
days, and you can just go in and watch something, and just let it all soak in and come out feeling inspired and go. Hopefully it gives you that boost as well when you're working, because you can see stuff in films and that experience that you have that will, like, oh yeah, something will click, and right, yeah, I'd love to do something like that, or oh, I like that shot, that would be really nice if I framed stuff like this and that. So
Yes.
I'm always thinking, whether it's whilst I'm taking stuff in, there's always stuff in the back of my mind that is like, that's a really nice shot.
Interesting.
I could really use that, and how did they do that? And that looked really nice, and yeah, yeah.
Sick. So like, bit of recon, right?
Oh
Do
yeah, yeah.
you um do you find that you can only get certain things from a creative perspective and from a design perspective more in a cinema, if that makes sense? So obviously, you can see it on screen. You can get like, screen grabs and whatnot, and study lighting and composition, what have you. But what is it about seeing it on screen that offers you as a creative additional information that you can use when essentially manipulating a frame to
I
evoke more
think
emotion?
I think the difference within a cinema is you've paid your money, you've gone in, you've sat down, you're not looking at your mobile phone, which we all do at home. We'll be watching a
Yes.
film, and if you start getting bored, you're like, oh, what's on your
Yes.
phone? You don't do that in the cinema. Well, I don't anyway. I know there's
Yeah.
people that do that. Um, so you're invested in it, and I think you pay attention more, and I think you become more absorbed and probably take things in a lot more than you would do when you're sitting at home. Because if you're sitting at home, you're like, I feel like having a cup of tea, I'll pause that. And I'll go well, that breaks the experience.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that.
Whereas,
But I do it a lot, but I always
yeah,
get bummed out. Like, my wife always comes like, just see how long's left. I'm like, no, I don't want to see how long's left. Like, that
yeah,
completely ruins it for me, because I know, like, oh, they're gonna come to
yeah.
conclusion and stuff. But sorry, I had to just have a little outburst there. But sorry, carry on.
No, or skip it. I'm
Yeah.
terrible at
Oh
doing that.
no, that bothers me so much.
If I'm watching stuff and I'm thinking this is really boring, I'll skip it. That's the
Yeah.
sign that, especially with the shows that are getting released on, say, Netflix or whatever, where some of them are over like, 12, 13 episodes. And you watch them, you think, really? You should have condensed this down into like 6 episodes, and it
Mm-hmm.
would have been so much better,
Mm-hmm.
because you're just doing filler. And you have old episodes that are what I call filler episodes.
Yes. Yes.
Generally, they tend to be before the finale,
Yes.
and they'll do one, and it's just like, why have you put that in? It's the
Yes.
most boring episode ever, and you've completely ruined the momentum. And so you end up watching stuff on fast forward. That's when you know you're watching something really bad, is if you start
Mm.
fast forwarding stuff. But again, if you're in the cinema, you can't really do that. You've got to just sit, take it all in. And then you come out, you've got your own judgment when you come out from that experience.
Yes. How do you find a different experience when you're watching a film or a show with someone else versus on your own? Or is it the same experience?
For me, it's the same experience. Because I just completely switch,
Right.
especially in the
Like
cinema.
the blinders are on and you're just fully locked in.
Yeah, I just switch off. Yeah, but yeah, it's got to be. You've got to be like that. I think I'm there and I'm there to watch that film.
Yeah.
A little bit different when it's at home because obviously you've got so much stuff, other stuff going on.
Yes.
And it's always like, go make me a cup of tea. And
Yeah.
you've got to get up and go make a cup of tea, and it's like, what have I missed? Or do you want me to rewind it? No, just let it run, or I'll rewatch it myself later on. I'll just watch stuff by myself.
Yeah. Actually, that brings back some memories when, especially when it used to be on like ITV or the ones that had commercials.
Yeah.
They'd obviously stop the film for like 5 minutes and you knew you'd wait for that to go to the toilet, for example, or get a drink, and then you quickly run back and you don't want to miss what comes back. At least I used to anyway. I've thinking back now, I guess that was a bit quite extreme, but no. Yeah, the whole just watching something that's like, I guess, meant to be in a single take. And just your thoughts on films as well. Obviously, that there's many films that I revere, and I'm sure you do too, that you just watch over and over and over again. Do you think a film should be judged in the first take and the only take, or should it be watched multiple times to judge it? And I guess what I mean by judging it is like to really decide if it's a good film or not, because when you watch a film, sometimes it's purely just for your own pleasure, for your own enjoyment. But I guess when a film's trying to, like, say, convey a message or really make an impact, like, for example, Blade Runner, for example, I would love to know what your take is. Do you think you should judge a film only on its first viewing? And if all those things that are meant to, I guess, stick on the viewer to the viewer stick? Or, yeah, do you let it just, like, ingest it a few more times and let it kind of sink in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, thing is, I watch stuff so much. I think that's a difficult one to answer. I mean, with certain films, you'll sit there and you'll get that first initial impact, and then I'll think, I cannot wait for that to come out so I can sit down and watch it multiple times. And then there's films that you go in and go, you've watched it and you think that was a really good film, but I don't think I could watch that again. Whether it's been something on a more emotional level or whatever, there are certain films that are absolutely fantastic, and you think, oh God, that was tough going. And yet there's the other stuff that's more, for example, my kind of vibe. They're the ones that I would get and bring home. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've watched Blade Runner, in all its formats. And in fact, there's a new one coming out next year with some guys found tons and tons of off-cut footage and everything, and has pieced this back together again and added in other special effects as well. And it just looks mind-blowing what he's done. And it's like, I have no idea where he's got half this footage from. And it's all legit footage. But yeah, I will watch Blade Runner a couple of times a year at least. The same with Close Encounters, the same with stuff like Jaws, because those things are just absolutely, they're educational. You can learn so much from watching. I'm always picking up new stuff because I like to think I'm always growing as an artist, so I always tend to see things slightly differently. And I think it's good as well. I think it's good to go back and watch some of these films. And it's not just older films; it's stuff that really just like resonates with you. I was watching. We went to the cinema to see Nope, which I thought was just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Some of the footage in that is incredible, and I have watched that over and over and over again, and I just find it brilliant, even down to the Akira motorbike shot that's in it, which is just, again, it's just a fabulous film. And it's like It's like Jaws and Close Encounters mixed together.
Wow. Wow.
Um, and it's great, and I love it. And that only came out was it 2 years ago, but
Yeah,
for
I
me
think
that's
so.
a classic already.
I
You
gotta
know,
check that out. I haven't seen
yeah,
that
yeah,
yet.
it's great. It's brilliant. It really is good, and it's very funny. Um, and it's got a couple of shots that I looked, and I remember watching it. And me and my son he used to be my cinema buddy, but he's 22 now and he's found women and drink. So we don't get to go to the cinema very often. But the two of us were watching it, and there's one shot where this thing is, I won't ruin it, but it's over the house and it's raining. And I was looking at the photography and I was like, oh my God, that's absolutely stunning. It's
Yeah.
such an amazing shot. But yet it was completely different watching it on the TV as it was to the cinema. It's yeah, really cool film to watch.
Oh, amazing. It's totally true what you said about it there. It's great to hear as well that you're always going to continue learning and growing. I guess like with artists, we always think, well, I guess it's never like, maybe some do think that I've made it, I've reached it, I'm the best ever. But there's always that feeling of like, I don't know enough, I need to know more. And it's good to know that obviously like it's, yeah, there's just more you can feed into and develop further. What was the last film? So you mentioned what was the other film that you'd say recent times that you watched? Where it was just like jaw dropping or really impactful, either as an artist or just as a film lover.
Oh, tough one, very tough one. I think the Batman I thought was fantastic. Um, I loved the creator from Gareth Edwards, and for me that was brilliant. Um, and everyone goes, "Oh, the story is dreadful." And I didn't care.
Yeah.
It looks staggering. What they
Yes.
did with that film is just breathtaking.
Yes.
And it's one of the better art books out there as well. Um, so yeah, that was probably one of the ones over the last couple of years I've gone, yeah, that for me is something that I'll watch over and over and over again, because it's just seeing everything and how those guys knowing how those guys put that stuff together.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
it was just beautiful. And again, hopefully it's a way of doing filmmaking that's gonna change, and the influence that the concept team had on that as well was really good to see, because there's a lot of time where we do work and we don't even get in the credits
Mm-hmm.
now, which is more common than not, to be honest. Um, and if you try and explain to people what you do as a concept artist, and the amount of time that you spend and creating stuff for film and designing stuff for film, we have such a huge impact on that whole genre, especially now, especially I would say over the last 10 years, we've become so important. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not blowing smoke up anyone's backside, it has become an extremely important art form, and yet there's still times where you're not really seen. We go
Mm-hmm.
in, we do the work, we do the design work, and then everyone else takes credit for it, which is sometimes can be a little bit heartbreaking to see. But yeah,
Why do you think that is? What are like I guess the driving forces behind it? Is it more a point of ignorance, maybe from the consumer, maybe from the people that are calling the shots, or maybe some other things going on?
it's really crazy actually. The amount of people that are in the industry that don't know what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and they think that a lot of this stuff has come from the director or
Okay.
has come from the production designer, um, or someone's just made it up while they've been filming. It's not the fact that we've spent 9 months before shooting happens, working day in, day out to try and figure everything out. And, we don't just draw pretty pictures. We're there to solve problems. That's why directors get us in and a production designer gets us in to solve those problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how is this stuff going to look? How is this stuff going to work? And yeah, we are. I find that we are incredibly. In fact, I was talking to Jammer about this at Concept 101, and he said to me after the talk that we did, he said I've just realised, he said, just how unappreciative we are as people. He said I never really thought about that before, and we are. We do get, you know. There's been times where you know, you'll have people talking about. I mean, I've seen this loads of times on the TV where people are talking about how they've done this and how they've done that, and I'm thinking, no, you didn't. That was the concept team that did that, and I know the guys that designed that. So what you're saying is complete fabrication.
Yeah.
But it's just the way that the industry is. Unfortunately, it's but then you get certain directors that will actively push people forward, and certain production designers that will actively push people forward. I mean, Fede was like that on Alien. He has sung our praises from the rooftops, you know, and that's a rarity. You know, you don't often get that. We are basically we're unseen, and we just like little pixies in the background. Yeah, which, you know, it's cool because sometimes you see your work come up and it's like, that's cool, I did that, you know. But it would be nice to get a little bit more recognition and a little bit more respect, I think, in the industry than what's generally out there at the moment.
That's fascinating to hear. I guess, like, from my own experiences and speaking to other people as well, it is the things that you saw in the IPs growing up. Like, I love Star Wars, but for me, just seeing the spaceships, seeing the vehicles and everything, that's what really got me hooked. Obviously, understanding who designed them afterwards, they become your own personal rock stars because you revere who created that thing that made you either excited or happy or just gave you that joy, for example, or that inspiration. Yeah. I do the same thing with music. Like, I'm more obsessed about who produced the music as opposed to the artist, who's kind of like, obviously they're involved as well, but you could tell when it's more the producer versus the artist. So I, you know, like, just get obsessed over like what they've created so I can get more of what they have. And I guess it keeps going like that way. And I guess with the artists as well, like within our community, I think everybody kind of understands and appreciates, especially the superstars, because you can see how good they are as well. Like, it's quite common. But yeah, it seems to be beyond that though. It's almost an isolated community. Like, it's almost like one of those people that live in those tribes that live in the Amazon rainforest, like untouched, almost, so to speak. Like, you know, don't know what goes on there and stuff. What do you think that's going to change, or do you think unless we get a bit louder, I guess it's always going to be a case of let us stay in their little, you know, design room and give us the designs and we'll go take the glory?
It's definitely improving, and the reason why it's definitely improving is that there are more concept artists getting into higher positions. You know, you've got Klein, who did The Creator. You know, he was a concept artist, and then he's stepped up. And I'm sure that there's going to be more. And I think once that starts to happen, then you're going to want to bat for the guys that are working for you. You know, because when you have a team and a team of guys, and if you're a concept artist and then you've gone to like production designer, you know, you're going to want to, you're going to take those guys with you, and it's going to mean something. So I'm definitely seeing that there's starting to be a shift in the industry. There is still certain elements out there of, would I call it gatekeeping, of people who think that they're in charge of doing stuff when it's not really. I don't know. Like I said, the industry is so fickle anyway. You know, but I'm hoping over the next few years, that's if AI doesn't slaughter us all. You know, hopefully things might change, and newer directors that are coming up as well are more in tune with that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They want to utilize the skill sets of people for doing certain things. Um, and it's gone from just having one or two people, like, let's bring Sid Mead in to design some stuff. It's gone from just like that one person to, let's bring a team of 8 or 9 people in, or maybe more,
Mm.
depending on what the genre of the film is. And they're also in every genre. I mean, when we did Masters of the Air, there was quite a few on the crew then for doing that, and that was like
Wow.
for World War II stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and again, we were instrumental in creating the look of those aerial battles, because they wanted to see shots with cameras, almost like GoPro cameras, and that's
Yeah.
what we were concepting up, was to show those different types of shots to make it as dynamic as possible, but not sort of soil or ruin the what those guys did during World War II. It wasn't a case of let's Hollywoodize it. They wanted to immerse people into the battle scenes, and
Mm.
I think they achieved that. And that was down to us. No, we never got credits for that, but we know it's our work, and I can see stuff and go,
Mm.
that looks exactly like one of my shots.
Wow.
you know. So hopefully things will change. We can only hope.
And with that said, understanding, and obviously from your experiences as well, like how important concept art and concept arts Inc. is to the outlook of the film. How does that affect your approach to a project, and what kind of skills would you say to, especially those starting off or who wants to be in that position? What skills should they nurture to ensure that when you are hard on a film, you deliver the best possible work? What kind of things? Yeah, like, I guess like with your mindset, like how do you go in approaching the project? So like Masters of the Air or anything else, for example, knowing the impact that you're going to have as an artist on the final outlook of the film, how do you tackle it?
I mean, every project's different. Literally, that's one of the reasons why I love the job, is that literally everything that we do on a day-to-day basis can be completely different to the day before. Um, Skills wise, it's easy to say, oh, concentrate on your design skills, or concentrate on this, or concentrate on that. But I think it's just becoming a good rounded artist. Always helps. Speed always helps as well, especially in today's market.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been the case that they want things done yesterday.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of a difficult question to answer. That is that what do people need to do to be in? Because there's so many. I know so many artists that are so completely different
Mm-hmm.
and bring so much different stuff to the table. Whether you can categorize it and say you must do this or you must do that, it's a bit like portfolio reviews. I see people go into portfolio reviews, and it's like you'll go to one studio and they'll want to see this, and you go to another studio and they'll want to see that. And so I find that all very confusing. And I just think the only thing to do is be the best artist that you want to be, not what everyone thinks you should be, but what you
Mm-hmm.
want to be, and concentrate on that. And, when you go into to do a film or a TV show or whatever, take that mindset, with you, and fear. You should always have fear. I think that's one of the driving forces. I never take a job on that I am not absolutely terrified of, and think to
Wow.
myself, how the hell am I going to do that? Because I'll tell you now, if you go in and go, oh, I can do that, I'll have that done in 5 minutes for you, it's going to be hell on earth. It will be hell on earth. And every single time I've done a job where I thought, oh, this is easy money, it's just completely backfired. So now I just do the jobs that scare the living daylights out of me. And I think, how the hell am I going to do that? Um, or if it's a big project, you think to yourself, am I really good enough to be on this project? Well, I'll give it a go and let's see what happens. I'm nervous about it,
Mm-hmm.
and I know so many people that are like that, that will have that initial fear. And I think it's what drives us,
Mm-hmm.
without doubt. I think it's what drives us. The amount of films that I've worked on where everyone's started off and everyone is just like, oh my God, I'm absolutely terrified. What I'm going to get kicked off this in the first 2 weeks,
Yeah.
you know? I think that's always good to have because it just pushes you along, makes you work harder, makes you a bit sharper.
Oddly, that's quite comforting to hear because every gig I get, although there's not been many this year that have come through, I get that same feeling every time. Like, I guess you can put it down to imposter syndrome or whatever else how you want to label it. But that, do you describe like that initial fear of like, I'm going to either mess this up or I'm going to get kicked off or what have you. But to hear you say that, that's almost a signifier as to almost like a good sign to say, go ahead and do it.
Mhm.
And it's also interesting to hear as well that I guess, like, so do you still feel that on a consistent basis whenever you start a gig?
Yeah, yeah, without doubt.
Have you ever battled with it, or have you just let it be? Because it seems like you just like kind of let it go through its motions, and then you just find a way through. Is that the case?
I'm just used to it now.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I'm used to it. And it's crazy. When we all started on Alien, um, I used to have conversations with Matt, and he won't mind me telling this. I used to have conversations with Matt. Matt would ring, Zoom call me in the morning, and he'd be like, "Oh my God, I'm going to get kicked off." And I'm like, "Matt, I'm going to get kicked off. Fede's going to see my stuff. He's going to think I'm shit, and I'm gone." And Matt's going, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." And every single one of us were the same. I mean, those guys, the top of the food chain, and every single one of us was exactly the same. We were all like, "Oh my God." I think after about a month, we all began to settle down, but it was like the sword of Damocles hanging over us all the time. Um, and it was just, it was kind of refreshing to hear that people who you look up to and you revere were all in the same boat, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, which is always nice. So if anyone's feeling like that, then I would say that's the most natural thing
Mm.
to do. It's everyone feels, we all feel like that. Even after all this time, I'm still exactly the same. Whether I'm good enough, whether I'm capable of doing this, um, I'll try and mitigate that by doing jobs that I think I might be able to do,
Yeah.
rather than stuff that Um, yeah, and that's another important thing is learning how to say no as well,
Mm-hmm.
which I've learned over the years, which I think only comes with time, to be honest. To say to someone, I'm not the right person for the job is equally as important as having that fear of, oh my God, I need to step my game up.
Why did you find the value or need to say no? Like, when did you get to that conclusion? Because I know a lot of people are going to be thinking, I can't afford to say no. Like, I need that gig. So, where was the value, or what was the realization that made you realize that no, this is the best move?
See, and that's the thing is that, everyone has that problem, don't they, where they say, I can't afford not to take that job. But the problem is, if you take that job and you're the wrong person for that job, it's going to be just as bad as if you didn't take it. In fact, it could be even worse. At the end of the day, we're only as good as the last job that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go in and mess that job up, then the industry's fairly small, to be honest. Um, Knowing when to say no, knowing when to say I'm not the right person for that job, rather than going, oh, I can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that now quite a few times where I've had to say to myself, if you take this job, you're going to mess this up. This is not your field. This is not your area. This is not your kind of thing that you do. You know, you need to say to them, no, that I'm not the right person for the job.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
And it is difficult, but again, I think it only comes with time and realizing that if you go in and like I said, mess that job up, not only does it have an impact on um, the fact that you've done a bad job, but it also affects you as an artist because then we're already we're already strange creatures as it is, you know. It doesn't take much to set us off. It doesn't take much to sort of upset us. And so if you've got not only if you've got like the problem of that constant struggle where you've got imposter syndrome or whatever, but then you've got that feeling of I've just messed up a job. I've really ruined my chances with working with those people again. You, it can snowball, you know, and if you're not strong, mentally strong,
Mhm.
it can have a massive effect on you, you know. And I've seen that with people in the past where they've just, you know, and it's really affected them. So yeah, so if you can have the foresight or the strength to turn around and say, you know what, no, that's not what I do, or that's not my style, or that's not my sort of genre. And that's not to say, you know, pigeonhole yourself. Um, I think that's an important lesson, definitely an important lesson to learn. Um, I mean, it took me years before I suddenly realised I shouldn't be too, you know. And now, like I said, now I take jobs on that terrify me, but I also take on jobs that I know, you know, if someone came to me and said, "Oh, we want you to concept for the next Arcane series," I'd be like, "No, I can't do that."
Mhm.
You know, that style is a world away from me,
Mm.
a world away from me. And if I tried to do that, I'd make a complete mess of it. And there's no point me doing that and forcing myself and pushing myself and making myself feel even worse
Mhm.
to go through that when I could just say, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, sorry.
Very wise. And I guess, like you said, like I guess that wisdom does come from almost letting yourself get stung a bit. I guess so you
Yeah,
know that okay, that's poisonous, but it hasn't killed me, so it's like anti venom. It becomes kind of thing. But I guess
yeah,
like the stupid thing would be to like kind of repeatedly doing it, and it keeps failing, right?
yeah. I did a few things early on when I first went freelance, and the majority of them were for like advertising agencies, and it was really stuff that I didn't want to do. I mean, really, I really didn't want to do it, but it was one of them. I'm going to have to take it to do the money, and I soon
Mm.
realised that that was just completely counterproductive. It was completely the opposite thing because you know one thing that you do have to do as an artist is you have to build up a good client base, um, but also you have to a reputation. You know, you have to have that sort of reputation that follows you that you can do the work, or that's the guy that's going to deliver, or he's going to do stuff to a good standard. And you can shoot yourself in the foot by doing stuff that you don't really want to,
Mhm.
or you're just doing it just because you want to get a foot in the door of the industry. Again, it's an incredibly difficult thing, an incredibly difficult decision to make when you're starting off, and someone comes along and offers you, you know, X amount or this or that, and you think, all right, I'll have a go, and then it backfires. That's never a good thing.
Have you ever had an unhealthy relationship with art, or even just your career?
With art,
Mhm.
no, 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 it's all I can do.
Sick.
Yeah, it's all I can do. So no, unhealthy maybe that I do too much.
Yeah.
Maybe that. My wife would probably say that. She'd say, just get away from that bloody machine for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I am obsessive. You know, even when I'm not working, I'll work.
Mm.
Um, because I love it. You know, you want to do that. You know, that's. I wake up in the morning, I've got 1,001 ideas, and I just want to get them done. You know, so yeah, I absolutely love it. So there is an unhealthy obsession with it, definitely for sure. Yeah, yeah, but
And
not.
uh,
No, I was just gonna say nothing nefarious or nasty or anything. No.
and is it almost like your way out if it ever does get kind of healthy? Like almost maybe doing the art can maybe get you into yeah, like a bad habit or something like overworking, for example. But then equally, do you find that it's the same thing that gets you out of it? Like maybe finishing a project that just clicks perfectly or something like that as well. Like, do you find the art is almost the solution as well as the problem sometimes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think I've ever had it where I felt that I'm done too much or I'm burning out.
Mm.
Um, and maybe I did that in game studios, but not since I've been doing freelance stuff. I don't think, you know, maybe sometimes if I've took on multiple projects at once, maybe that's been a bit too much and it's been a bit too stressful. But the
Mm.
majority of the time now, I just keep going and going. It's too much fun, you know. It's just great. It's the best job. It's the best job ever. It's like being 10 every
Yeah,
single day, you know. And the fact that people pay you to do this is just ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous. You know, when that's why I say, you know, I get paid to draw spaceships and monsters, and that's exactly what
yeah.
we get paid to do. And just, you know, my wife says I don't work. She says, you don't work, you just sit and mess around on your computer all day. She says, that's not work. That's not
Yeah,
outside or grafting or anything like
yeah.
that. You just, yeah, and it's true, you know. Yeah.
And does it feel like still surreal? Like, does it feel like a surreal kind of like vocation that you're allowed to do? You know, like spaceships and
Oh,
monsters.
every time.
Mm.
Every time. Um, you know, crazy things like I remember I was working on the Matrix and I remember going into the kitchen and saying to them, I'm working on the Matrix. Just couldn't believe it, you know. And it's like, you know, when we've all said this, and we still say this now. You know, oh my God, we worked on an alien movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, oh my God, we worked on an alien movie. You know, and it's like, yeah, it's brilliant. You know, it's just just a really cool feeling that you get to do this type of stuff. You know, I mean, what else? I don't even know what else I would be doing in
Yeah,
life if I wasn't doing this. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I never get bored of it. Never get tired of it. You know,
amazing.
I don't want to retire. Let's put it that way because it's just too much
I mean,
fun.
I guess like at least what my current take on it is, it's impossible to retire because that creative gene or whatever the mechanism is in our heads, it doesn't switch off, right? Unless
No,
something goes faulty, it's not going to switch off.
yeah, yeah, and it seems to have gotten worse as I've gotten older,
Wow.
where I just really have that much in my head,
Mm.
and I'll be doing work, and then I've got like three or four pieces going at the same time because it's just like overload all the time. It's just like I need to get this out. I need to get this out. You know, and even the same as working on a project. Um, you know, I'll once I get into something, it just becomes this almost like a machine of just like kicking stuff out and wanting to get stuff out as well.
Mm.
It's almost like some sort of release
Mm-hmm.
to get this stuff out of your head. You know, yeah, it's a good job.
What's the most you do? Like you mentioned, like like sometimes you can feel like I guess like you get a bit too much where you got too many gigs on at once, or I'm assuming that's the same thing with personal projects as well. Do you know what your limit is, or like you kind of Goldilocks zone with projects versus staying, I guess, productive or just being in a good place?
Um, two projects at the same time is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything more than that, you're asking for trouble. I know people that do that. I know people that just do one project.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends what happens. If two projects that are really good come along and maybe one's shorter than the other, great, do that, do X amount of hours on one and then do the rest in the evening time.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to always have stuff while I'm working on a project. I always find it's good for me personally to have something like personal work going on as well.
Mm.
So that, because sometimes you get into little blocks or you can't figure something out and you go, right, I'm going to give myself time out and I'm going to work on this piece and I'll be working on that piece. And then all of a sudden, bang, it'll click in and go, right, now I know what to do and go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then generally I'll finish the personal piece off in the nighttime, and just, then that's done. I get that out the way. And I also find as well, when you're working on something on a gig, um, it feeds ideas, so you're working on stuff and you're going, all right, that mightn't be a good shot for the project that you're doing, but I'll remember that. I'll remember what I was doing on that and I'll use that and put it on my own stuff, because it's not going to get used because it's wrong. It's not right for the project, but you go, no, you know what, actually, the thinking behind that was actually okay. So I'll keep that and I'll work on that and try something else. So you're constantly getting fueled all the time from both your personal work and then working as a gig. And it just all becomes one big unit then. So yeah, definitely.
And what's your, like, I guess, maybe not day because it's always very different. It goes to the project dependent as well, or like your working habits. Like, are you quite structured and clinical with how you manage time? Like, for example, I'm gonna block out my client project for this amount of time. I know you obviously mentioned just there, like you'll flit in and out between a personal project, maybe, or is it completely abstract and it's almost like raindrops and it just falls and it just lands and it gets
Yeah.
resolved?
Yeah. Second one, definitely.
Okay.
Sometimes you can get up and you can sit at your machine and there's nothing.
Yeah.
And you can sit at that machine and you can look at it and nothing's happening. At the end of the day, we're not robots, we're not machines. We have to be creatively influenced. And unfortunately, sometimes the brain just doesn't kick in. In saying that, I tend to find that around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when I kick in.
Mm.
And I'll do my best work in the evening time, which is something that I've never understood.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's a weird one. I mean, I do get up and I do, I'll start up around about 8 o'clock. And obviously, if you've got something that you're briefed in, you've got stuff that's already on the go, then it's just a question of, right, I'll work through and I'll get that done, and I'll work till maybe around about 5 o'clock, and then maybe start doing some personal work, and then
Mm-hmm.
finish around about 7, because by that time I'm not fired up anyway. I tend to find that my speed comes in a lot more. So I'll already have had stuff, thinking about stuff while I'm working. And then I go, right, now I know exactly what I want to do. And it's my personal work. So that means I can chuck it together however I want. And I'll use every trick in the book that I've got to get that shot for myself done. Whereas the client work may take a little bit more thought, a little bit more new stuff. Maybe I've got to build more stuff in 3D.
Yeah.
Maybe I've got to do this. Maybe I've got to do that. So yeah, so it does become fluid, and I'll take breaks. If I need to go outside for half an hour or go for a walk, I'll go and do
Mm-hmm.
that. At the end of the day, as long as you get the work done, you know, um, there's no issues, and
Yes.
it's very rare that you have someone messaging you all the time a client messaging you all the time. I did have one the other month where it was like literally every 20 minutes you would get a call, and it was just like, stop, just let me get on with doing stuff. Um,
And was it
yeah,
like for updates or just have a conversation or
just for
what?
like, I'd send stuff through and it'd be like, oh, let's have a conversation, or new ideas would come through. And
Okay, okay.
but it was to the point where it was just like, it was counterproductive.
Uh-huh.
And it was just like, just let us get something finished,
Yeah.
or to a certain level, because some people can't see stuff until it's done. And constantly bombarding people with ideas is just like, that's completely
Mm,
counterproductive. See the piece to a certain extent and then give feedback, but not
mm-hmm,
every 20 minutes.
mm.
Oh, I've had this idea, or oh, I've had that idea, and it's just like, yeah, tough going. Luckily, that's few and far between in my experience, anyway.
I know, like with every like director or art director or production designer, it's always different. Everyone, like you said, prefers a different level of image or type of solution that they're looking for. Whether it's like super loose, they can see exactly what they want and that's enough, or they want something super polished. Um, have you found there's a kind of like a middle ground? Like there's a safe kind of zone to get your work to before you deliver it, or is it best to kind of just play it by ear and respond to whoever you're working with?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. The everyone is different. I do have a certain standard that I want to get to. I've got to thank Ravi at DNEG for doing that to me, because I spent a lot of years working with DNEG, and it's, how can I put it? Is it expected? It probably is expected, because Ravi's Ravi's really cool to work with, and he likes a certain level of an image quality. So when you're doing stuff for concepts of VFX, they've got to be at a certain level. And then, if there needs to be feedback given, you just work on top of that image. And so that, working with them, I think I started working with them 2019. And so those years, especially during the pandemic as well, it was almost like he was almost like a drill sergeant. But he got me into a really good space, actually, of actually kicking stuff out that was at a certain level of quality. Um, yeah, that was really good, and that really helped me out. So I always have a certain level of quality now that I like to kick out. If I don't get an image finished in a day, I'm quite disappointed with myself.
Right, right.
I like to do that, or two or three images out at that level of quality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people ask for sketches. I sketch, but I'm not really a sketchy person. I work in 3D a lot, so it's difficult. I can send block out stuff over and paint over stuff from that. Um, but yeah, like I said, everyone is different. I find it more these days that people are wanting more of it to a finished level. Some directors can see it. Some are brilliant. Wes Ball was brilliant. Working with Wes. Wes is a really good artist in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to work with someone where, he would give you a brief and he'd say, I want something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could literally he would literally almost give you like a work in progress rough. And you'd be like, that's really cool. I can really work with that. Or he'll be kicking stuff out of the Unreal Engine and going, I want something like this. And you just take that and run with it. And, you'd be able to get to a certain level really, really quickly. And he was great to work with because he knew exactly what he wanted. And so, so did Fede. Fede just wanted options. So you were constantly giving different variations and different options and different color schemes and so forth, because he just wanted options. And but the nice thing with Fede was when it was something that he wanted, that was it. He would stick with it, and that's why everything in the film ended up looking like the work that everyone did, because it was like, that's it. I don't want to deviate from that. That's what we're going to take through, which again is quite a rarity, because when stuff goes through to VFX, a lot of the time, VFX concept artists get old stuff and stuff gets changed. Whereas on that particular film, nothing got changed. It was literally like everything's run through, which was really, really cool to see. Yeah.
I guess that's a nice segue into Alien Romulus. It was quite fascinating from my perspective. We mentioned, obviously, we geeked about this Concept 101. Obviously, like, speaking to Nick a couple of years ago, and then Matt, I think it was last year we spoke, there was something fishy in a good way. Like, the way both of them, and they weren't like, they were unrelated conversations. I've spoken to them like a year apart. The way they spoke about working on Alien, I was like, this is not the regular stuff that you hear other artists say, yeah, I worked on this and it was cool. That's normally like kind of how far it goes. There was something a bit more deeper. Like, you could see the eyes light up when they spoke about it. And then at Concept 101, was speaking to yourself, it was the same energy. So, first of all, what was it like when you got that gig? Because you mentioned earlier on as well, like Alien was one of the impactful films that you watched growing up as well. And at that point in time, I guess, like, from my perspective, Alien seemed like something that no one was going to touch, seemingly. It was just like, it was kind of done. I think the last one was Covenant. I know the series is coming out soon. But it seemed like people were moving on to other things, or the industry wanted to do something else as opposed to that. But yeah, I'd love to know that adventure, because it sounds like it was an absolute adventure.
It was crazy. That was a crazy one, because I was actually at DNEG when that came in, and it was like really, really early on, before Neyman had come on board. Neyman was our production designer, Neyman Marshall, and Ravi had said to me, "Oh, we've just got Alien come through. The script's really nice." So we ended up having a chat about it, and I think there was about 4 or 5 of us on it. And Ravi was just like, just try and kick some stuff out for this. We want some props doing. I think Valentine, one of the guys, he was doing some stuff on the station. One of the guys was doing some model work on the Xenomorph, and I was just looking at props, and what else was I looking at? Can't remember now. So that was before the film had even been greenlit or anything. And then I left DNEG then, because then I was going on to do Dune, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And then I literally finished Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and went on to Dune. And then Alex Nice messaged me and said, I'm doing Alien. Do you fancy seeing if you can get on it? And I was like, I don't know. I said, I'm on Dune. I said, but I'm not going to be on it that long, because it was right at the tail end of the thing. I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be on, but I said, I'm not on it that long. They'd only got me in to do some spaceships and some keyframes. And then I got an email off Neyman, and it was like, because the other weird thing as well was when we were at DNEG, it was going to be on Disney Plus originally. It was going to be on Hulu and Disney Plus, and I was thinking, they're not going to do much with that then, are they? Prey was pretty good, but what are they going to do with it? Is it going to be a Disney-fied Alien? I was thinking, I don't know about that. But the script was apparently looking really cool. And then Neyman messaged me and said, do you want to jump in on this? And I think I'd just been told I had about another week left. So I thought, you know what, sod it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, whether it's on TV or not. It's an alien film. I'll I'll do it. And we jumped on that, and it was just fantastic. There's no other way. From the minute that we all met, because I knew a lot of the lads before. I knew Matt, I knew Alex, um, and Chris Rosenware was on it, and I'd known of Dane Hallett for a couple of years. I had his fantastic Covenant book, um, and who else was on it? And Josh was on it, and I'd known Josh because Josh had done some really cool stuff for Marvel, and we'd all been talking on Instagram, and then all of a sudden, bang, there we were in a room, and then poor old Nick got roped in on it, and he was absolutely terrified. It was so funny, bless him. Um, but from the minute we started, it was fantastic, um, and we all clicked. And I think one of the important things was Fede. We had these what they call town hall meetings, where we would all be on Zoom call, and there'd be there'd be some of the art directors, and there'd be the concept guys, and Naaman and Fede, and yeah, we all just clicked. And Fede said, "I want you all just actively talk to each other and share assets." Now, I've had that before, and generally everyone's just like, yeah, whatever. And they all kind of go off and just do their own thing. It's terrible. It really is. But this time we all did, and we would all have Zoom calls. And, we used to do Zoom calls with Gus. Gus Mendoka he's in Washington. So we would be doing them like, 5 o'clock in the evening, we'd have a chat with Gus, and it'd be me, Matt, and Gus, just not just talking about the film, just talking about anything, and then we'd have like chats with the guys in Los Angeles, which is Josh and Alex. And then we'd set calls up to have calls with Dane and Nick in Australia, and we'd do like early morning calls with them. And then constantly we'd all be talking to each other on Instagram, just all the time. And even to the point that we have this group set up, which is just the concept artists from the film. We even talk, even today, almost every single day, just chatting, because we've become that good friends from this project, which again is extremely, extremely rare. But everyone just clicked, and I think everyone was so vested in it as well. We'd get up, I'd get up in the morning, and it was like a kid getting up at Christmas, because you'd come down and you'd want to see what everyone has done in Dropbox, and people have been dropping their stuff in. You'd be like, oh my God, that's so cool. And you'd be messaging going, Gus, that is just amazing what you've been doing. Or Alex, that's really cool. Or the guys would be messaging me going, oh, that's really cool. And yeah, it was just great. And we had so much freedom and so much trust from Fede and Naaman on that project. It was just bizarre. They were like, well, you guys know what you're doing. Just go ahead and do it. And if you start going off track, we'll steer you a little bit, We'll get you back on track. But that seemed to be really few and far between when that happened. We all just got into the groove so quick. And again, the script was great. I think we'd all read the script. And then we all got assigned various sections. And it was just like, off you go, boys. It's like playtime, and it was just brilliant. It was just definitely one of the most fun, creative gigs I've ever worked on. And I know all the guys will say exactly the same. We keep saying it's the gift that keeps giving, because we've had so much out of it. We had the red carpet out of it, and we've had podcasts out of it, and and all sorts. Magazines. You've got Imagine FX have done a big thing with us, that's coming out on the 17th of December, I think it is.
Nice.
and it's just been great. We've had industry magazines. There was, I think it's ADG in America, which is like an art directors guild magazine, and we got a little like 4 or 5 pages in that one, and so it's been fantastic. But I think I think because we were all Alien nuts to start off with. We all loved the franchise, and we
Mm-hmm.
all loved that era of science fiction. And so it was even better when Fede was like, "It's going to be set between the first two movies," and we were like, "Oh, this is heaven. It doesn't get much better than this, you know." Um, so it was just really good fun to work on. And Neyman was brilliant, because he knew when to pull us in, but he knew when to let us run, and
Mm-hmm.
that was really important, I think. And I think we everyone did fantastic work on it, and the film looks great, you know. Um, and I'm not being biased, but it looked great. Yeah, it was a cool project, definitely.
Have you had any project similar to that kind of like environment, that kind of vibe?
No,
Wow.
no, nothing to that level where we all gelled as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's a rare beast, and we said that to Nick because that was Nick's first film. We said, Nick, it's all downhill from now. It's yeah, yeah. It's a shame because every film should be like that. Every film that
Mm-hmm.
we work on, it should be that. And I've tried in the past to get things to be like that, and to
Mm.
try and engage people. But some people just don't. Some artists just want to be left alone. But we were all in it for the for just like I said, we've all become really good friends now. Um, and there's talk of that we might be all meeting up next year in Los Angeles. If that comes off, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
That'll be good because that'll be the first time we've all been in a room at the same time.
Wow.
Um, yeah, which would be extremely, extremely bad, I think.
I mean, I guess that's a testament to um I guess the age that we're in. Like mentioned earlier on with Star Wars, I guess everybody at that point in time had to literally be in the same room together. And if you couldn't be there, like it's just not gonna work.
Yeah,
Obviously, fast forward, my whole career's basically been remote. I said no,
yeah,
not 100% remote. And I guess for most people as well. And you guys had that kind of role, still remote, but kind of hybrid, like different time zones and stuff. But it's cool if you guys do get together, like to kind of go full circle. And what kind of ingredients do you think led to this being that special project that you guys had? Obviously, it sounds like it's definitely a personality thing with everybody clicking. That's one big thing. But versus, because basically, like growing up again, things that I revered, and what impressions I had of the industry or what a great project would be is how you guys described speaking to you individually. Because there's always like, I've worked in sales for many years, so I'm a bit of a skeptic when I hear positivity in like say a marketing sense, like, oh yeah, this is great, this is everything, because we all have to do it, right? But I could tell like, no, these guys actually mean what they're saying. Like, there's something honest about what they're saying. So you kind of dig a little bit deeper and you see what triggered that. But when I think about things, I think of like the making of Lord of the Rings. Like when you hear everybody, even without them saying it, you could tell that they were on board with what's happening and they were happy to be there and deliver what they needed to deliver, even when things weren't going so well. And it gave me that kind of vibe as well. What do you think it is that made that happen? And what are the key ingredients if you, for example, try to, make that chemistry all up over again?
I think that one. It was just we just got lucky. We got lucky that we had um, Neyman as our production designer, and we got really lucky that we had Fede. And Fede was as obsessed with Alien as we were. Those film, the Cameron film, in fact, any of them really have been such an influence as artists, to us all. Um, and I think it was just, maybe it was just something like the fact that we all just loved it.
Mm-hmm.
we all had an appreciation for each other's work, which was again was really nice. There was no egos at
Mm,
all, which again I think maybe it was because the crew we were a little bit older than usually. There's a mix of like I mean we had Nick. Nick was sort of like the baby out the group, and the rest of us were like old men really.
okay.
So maybe there was a maturity thing going on. I don't know. That may sound a little bit, um, but we just were just so invested in it. And even when we went over to Budapest, I mean that was the icing on the cake. We got invited over to Budapest to the sets, and Nick and Dane flew over from Australia, and me and Matt flew over from the UK. And again, we were, sometimes you go on set and it's all very, oh, you don't speak to the director, and all this. Well, Fede come out and hugged every one of us and showed us around the set that he was filming on that day. And then Naaman went and took us around all five, because it was on five sound stages, took us around all five sound stages. And then said, right, boys, you go off and play in the sound stages. We were up in the Corbellian spaceship for about an hour just chilling. It's like it was the cockpit was like on this rig that was about 20 foot up. And, we've got so many photographs of us just sitting in that cockpit that Matt designed, Um, and it was just brilliant, to be there and meet the guys for real. But the fact that everybody knew we were coming was so bizarre. Everyone was so appreciative. You know, um, my stuff unfortunately wasn't there because mine was all location stuff. But Nick's was there, and I remember Haley, one of the art directors, and she was like, "Nick, this is your set. Thanks for designing this." And it was just like it was wild to see. Everyone was just like coming over and giving you hugs and saying thank you for the work that you've done for making this look the way it was, because the sets were just mind blowing. Um, but yeah, it was just the whole experience of it again was just something that just doesn't happen, which I think is kind of a shame that it doesn't
Mm,
happen. I think when stuff like that happens, you get more back from artists on the web, because a lot of the time as well, we came back from Budapest. I think that was in May, and I'd finished then, so I'd been on it about I think I'd been on it about 7 months, 8 months, and then some of the guys got brought back on to finish stuff. And I know Matt was on it until almost towards the end, working with the VFX guys, and so was Alex, and so was Dane. So again, that was nice that they were brought back in to almost oversee the VFX stage, concept stage, which is where stuff often gets muddied and changed around. But
mm.
I think with Fede bringing those guys back in was a really shrewd move to do. Yeah, and I think that's what made everything so cohesive right the way throughout the project. But again, it's really difficult to pinpoint it because none of us have experienced anything like that before. You
Interesting.
know, yeah,
But hopefully it continues and happens more often. Like this shouldn't be a one-off. And
yeah,
going back to what you said earlier on as well, like about almost concept artists in particular being like almost hidden and not known kind of thing. Like this seemed like the antidote to that. Like the appreciation for the work you guys clearly did, how it translated, and obviously like just the acceptance of like how important these guys were. Like that seems to me like the gold standard of, I guess, like, and obviously this is from your perspective as concept artists. What kind of vibe did you get from Fede, Naaman, and from the people, I guess, other areas of the production towards the production as well? Like, did you find that it was not just only like specific to your department? Was it like almost
it was
everywhere?
everyone. It was
Mm,
everyone. Honestly, when you went round set, um, everyone was just buzzing to be working on it. It was just great. Um, it was just such a fantastic experience, and meeting some of the we all went out for dinner one night, and meeting the art directors. All the art directors came out, and they'd all been obviously working on different sets, and they were all asking, who'd done which set, who'd done which, this and that, and to hear them saying to all of us, thanks, thank you, which is just unheard of, for them to turn around and say thank you for doing the design work and all that stuff. It was brilliant, but everyone just genuinely seemed. I mean, they were absolutely exhausted. I mean, absolutely exhausted by the time we went over. They were almost close to finishing the shoot, and the sets were absolutely enormous.
Mm.
But everyone was smiling and happy, which was just surreal to see, But I think that's what made it work, because you can tell when you look at a film if it's been made right. I think that one was made right. It was a relatively medium-sized budget film, and it looks way, way, way more than it cost. Way
Mm-hmm.
more than it cost. And I think that was down to, Fede going, that's it, that's what I want, that's what we're sticking with, and not changing stuff, And yeah, that was great to see. Really
I
enjoyed
totally,
it.
yeah,
Well,
I totally agree. Like, I put it in that category of the last 24 months or so, like with the creator as well. Like, it looks way bigger than technically what it was built for.
yeah,
Which we were saying before as well. Like, I definitely, that adds more value to my experience in watching the film when that's gone into it as well. And back to like movies and stuff and movie magic, Star Wars being one of them, Blade Runner you mentioned, the original Alien, like all of these along the way added something new to either the filmmaking, the industry, the genre, or just fandom in general. And I always get happy when that happens in films. And seeing the design stuff in there, I enjoyed that. Like, I honestly didn't expect I would enjoy it so much, because my investment into the Alien universe at that time was almost done. I was like, okay, cool. It's let's just see what they do. I had low expectations, but I went in there and yeah, I left smiling. I was happy, but more so purely because visually it was so good. Like, and obviously, like you said, like everything was. I think, obviously, apart from the visual effects stuff, everything was built. Everything was
yeah,
interacted with by the actors as well, and that
yeah.
definitely shows. That's the magic of the first one. Also, um, what was, I guess, two questions. What was for what you did and what someone else did on the film? What were your favorite designs?
Favorite designs. I love the ship. I love the ship that Matt did. That was great. That was really nice. I think my favorite one is the Echo Probe, which is the ship at the starting. That was
Yes.
just, that was just brilliant. And one of my favorite scenes was when they actually are going to the debris field, which I think, I could be wrong, I think it wasn't in the script from what I can remember.
Oh, okay.
And when I saw that, I completely forgotten, because I think Alex Nice had done the work on that, and it came on screen, and I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. That's so clever what they've done. It's the debris field from the Nostromo and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, that's great. The Echo Probe was great. I really, really loved that. Really loved that. Um, oh my god, there's so much that I liked about the film. Um, like I said, I think what made it more was actually being there on set,
Mm.
and standing and walking in these sets, and literally being, a couple of minutes in walking in a set, you were completely 360 degrees surrounded by a living, breathing space station, which was just mind blowing, even down to the food in the machines.
Oh,
It was
really?
like Wayland Yutani. It was Wayland Yutani mugs, and it was honestly, it was just incredible what they'd done with it. Um, So I think Matt's ship or the Echo probe. I think Matt had worked on the Echo probe as well. I think that was him and Gus that worked on that. And then for my stuff, I think my favorite stuff was probably the exterior stuff, which was when I got given it, it was just a muddy field. And then obviously we populated it with the trailers and all that rest. And when that came on, I was like, oh, that looks good. That looks good. I was because I saw photographs of that because I had a little bit of a break in the project around about February, and the photos started coming through from set because my stuff, which was all the opening sequence, the opening location stuff, that had to be shot first because I think Fede wanted to shoot it in the winter. So all that stuff got shot and had to be done first. And seeing the photographs coming through, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that he's got it that close to what I'd done. It just looked like the ass end of space, which is exactly what I said. I said that to Fede. I wanted it to be like, I wanted it to feel just so awful. And I saw the photographs and I was like, oh my God, it was quite emotional actually. I was like, oh my God, that looks beautiful, in a dystopian kind of way. So yeah, to be honest, all of it, I'm proud of all of it and proud of what the guys did as well. There's not a weak bit in that film, from the station to what we did on the planet to, what Dane did with the creatures and the face huggers was great. And the other thing as well, which I absolutely love, is the hybrid at the end, which I know a lot of people, it's sweet and sour to some people.
I liked it as well.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. In fact, I told my son to see it. And when it came up, I went, what did you think? And he went, oh my God, that thing at the end was the stuff of nightmares.
Yes.
And I was like, that's it. The job's been done, because it was incredible. Yeah.
Which I think is important as well, because the Xenomorph is a stuff of nightmares, but because it's been pop cultured so much, it's become a staple. So you don't see this horrific thing as like something horrific. It's almost like a piece of history. And it's almost lost that kind of horror. Although I always think the facehugger is the most horrific, even the egg, I guess, because you know what's to come. They're the most horrific ones because they kind of kill you without killing you. But yeah, to add something else that kind of, I agree as well, like it wasn't a nice, pleasant thing to look at. Like it was technically an abomination. And I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. Really cool. And that the guy, bless him, without all that makeup on, he was incredible because he was in it from the word go as well.
Right.
He was in it from like when I was doing stuff at DNEG, he was already going to be in it. And I remember Ravi sending me a photograph and going, this is the guy that's going to be playing the alien creature at the end. And I was like, oh my God, that he looks crazy. He's got such a huge neck. And to have him in that makeup at the end, was just, oh my God, it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Cole, we've sadly run out of time. I've got a billion more questions I'd love to ask you. But before we head off, any final thoughts, words or messages from yourself to the listeners?
No, you know what? If you want to do it as a job, if you want to get into this field, just do it. Don't let people say you can't. Just do it. I had everyone telling me I couldn't do it, and just keep going. If you keep going, eventually you'll get there. And it's a fun job to do. If you just keep going.
Brilliant, Cole. Thanks so much, man.
Cheers, mate. That's brilliant.
A huge thanks to Cole for an incredible conversation. Be sure to hit the links to see what Cole is up to and give him a follow. Then head to learnsquare.com and take some of our courses. Remember, all of our first lessons are free. I've been your host, Aaron Danda. Till next time.